Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
Welcome to Outlaws and Gunslingers with the hosts, Bang and Dang, and got another murder for you guys. This time,
got a 187.
you think Chris Watts was messed up? This guy over here, especially being a soldier, and then blaming it on some druggies, and he did it on a military base to boot. We're talking about Jeffrey Robert MacDonald, who is a former medical doctor and United States Army captain. Pregnant wife, 2 daughters. What's so similar, right?
Right.
Same thing as Chris Watts, pretty much. Murdered them, convicted of them, murdering them in February 1970 while serving as an Army Special Forces physician. He was born in Jamaica, Queens, New York. Anyways, he was the second of 3 children born to Robert and Dorothy MacDonald. He was raised in a poor household on Long Island with a disciplinarian father who...
Is that a real thing?
What?
There's a poor household on Long Island?
Yeah.
What do they mean by poor? Less than $200,000 a year?
Probably. His father was a disciplinarian, although nonviolent towards his wife and children, demanding obedience and achievement from his family.
Nothing wrong with that.
MacDonald attended Patchogue Medford High School, where he became president of the student council. Okay.
That guy, he's popular.
Popular.
He's popular. He was voted most popular and most likely to succeed by his
Most
fellow
likely to
students.
murder his family.
All right, and he was also king of the senior prom. Look at this
This
guy. He had it
guy.
all. Was he captain of the football team?
Wow, and he was poor, huh?
Towards the end of his eighth grade year, MacDonald became acquainted with Colette Catherine Stevenson. She would later recollect he had first observed Colette walking down the hallway of high school with her best friend, and that although he was attracted to both girls, he found Colette more attractive.
He's like, you're hot, but your friend's not.
Approximately 2 weeks later, they began talking and formed a friendship, with MacDonald soon asking her out to the movies.
Oh, so sweet. The two formed a brief romantic relationship in the 9th grade, with MacDonald later recollecting they fell in love while holding hands on a balcony while watching the movie A Summer Place at the Rialto Theater in Patchogue. He would later reminisce that whenever he and Colette heard the song theme from A Summer Place across the airwaves, either of us would turn up the radio.
Aw, that's sweet.
The following summer, while visiting a friend on Fire Island, Colette announced to MacDonald that the relationship was over.
Oh, dang.
MacDonald later formed a relationship with a girl named Penny Wells.
I hope Colette has something to do with the story here. Because if not, who gives a shit?
Jeez.
MacDonald's high school grades were sufficient for him to earn a 3-year scholarship at Princeton.
Damn.
Wow.
I'd
Where
say-
he enrolled as a pre-medical student in 1962.
Pre-med.
By the second year of his studies, MacDonald and Wells had separated once again. He is single. He soon resumed his romantic relationship with Colette.
Hey.
Then a freshman at Skidmore College in Saratoga Springs. She's like, "Wait, you're going to Princeton?"
She's like, "Oh, you're gonna be a doctor?"
I'm stuck here at Skidmore.
Skidmore.
I bet it's a good college.
I bet you it's not.
Skidmore?
In Saratoga Springs.
MacDonald would later recollect Colette had grown into a shy young woman with a slight fear of the world in general, who would rely on his own self-confidence. MacDonald found her timidity touching and gradually viewing her himself as her protector in addition to her boyfriend.
Okay.
Oh, wow. The two regularly exchanged letters, and he would frequently hitchhike to Skidmore College to be in her company at weekends. Although MacDonald was dating other women at the time,
hell.
he resolved to marry Colette upon learning she was pregnant with his child in August of 1963. She in turn left college to raise their child. Oh, damn.
Okay. Well, with the consent of Colette's family, the two married on September 14th in New York City. 100 people attended the service, with the reception held at the Fifth Avenue Hotel. The couple then honeymooned at Cape Cod. It's a hell of a place. Their first daughter, Kimberly Catherine, was born on April 18th, 1964. Upon completion of his undergraduate degree at Princeton, MacDonald briefly worked as a construction supervisor before he moved with his wife and child to Chicago in the summer of 65.
Nice.
Where he had been accepted at Northwestern University Medical School.
Oh, shit.
The couple moved into a small one-bedroom apartment with Colette committed to maintaining the household and raising their daughter as MacDonald focused on his studies, while also working a series of part-time jobs to assist with family finances. The following year, the family relocated to a middle-class neighborhood. Okay, part-time jobs are really paying off for you there, huh? Her second child, Kristen Jean, was born May 8, 1967.
Look at that shit. Shortly thereafter, MacDonald graduated from medical school in 1968. He and his family relocated to Bergenfield, New Jersey, as he completed a 1-year internship at the Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York, specializing in thoracic surgery. MacDonald later described his internship year as a horrendous year for both himself and Colette, adding he frequently worked 36 hours with only 12 hours at home.
Hey, welcome to an internship, bud.
36 hours straight.
I'm sure, right?
Consequently, when at home, he was frequently exhausted and had limited interaction with his wife and daughters. At the completion of his internship, MacDonald and Colette vacationed in Aruba before MacDonald joined the Army.
So
He did all that just to join the Army.
Right. MacDonald enlisted in the United States Army on June 28, 1969, and was sent to Fort Sam Houston, Texas, to undergo a 6-week physician's basic training course. While at Fort Sam Houston, he volunteered to be assigned to the Army Special Forces, which were the Green Berets, to become a Special Forces physician. He was then assigned to Fort Benning, Georgia, where he completed their paratrooper training course.
Damn. He wants to jump out of planes and shit.
Oh, okay. Although MacDonald had joined the Army knowing he might be deployed to serve in the Vietnam War, he later learned that as a Green Beret doctor, he was unlikely to serve overseas.
Right.
Exactly.
They ain't send those guys overseas. Late August 1969, MacDonald reported to the 3rd Special Forces Group at Fort Bragg, which is airborne. He reported there to serve as the group's surgeon. He was joined by his wife and children at this time. They lived on base, probably. Mm-hmm. And the MacDonald's family resided at 544 Castle Drive, in a section of the base reserved for married officers and afforded security by military police. Look at that shit. Yeah, it had to suck, though, living on it, because...
No, you can do whatever you want.
Right. The couple quickly became popular among the neighbors, although MacDonald and Colette are known to have argued occasionally. Like, they're nice, but... They really get into it sometimes.
I mean, it was the 60s. I'm sure all the husbands were beating their wives and all that shit.
Alice, one of these days, straight to the moon. By the time,
Pow, right in the kisser.
Right, they even did it in TV shows. He threatened domestic violence. By the time the MacDonalds moved into their new apartment at Fort Bragg, Colette had accrued 2 years of studies, with aspirations to obtain a bachelor's degree in English literature and teach part-time. She's like, I can be an English teacher or a literature teacher. Both daughters had developed distinctive personalities, Kimberly, the eldest, being markedly feminine, intelligent, and shy. Kristen, the youngest, boisterous tomboy, who would run over and crack someone if she observed her older sister being bullied by other children. Look at that shit.
Her, huh? December 10th, the 3rd Special Forces Group was deactivated. MacDonald was transferred on base to Headquarters and Headquarters Company, which is 6th Special Forces Group of Airborne 1st Special Forces, to serve as a preventive medical officer. Shortly before Christmas 1969, with his wife approximately 3 months pregnant with their 3rd child and first son, MacDonald bought his daughters a Shetland pony, anticipating the family would soon relocate to a farm in Connecticut.
How freaking cliche is that?
Right.
I want a pony, Daddy.
He kept his purchase a secret from his wife and children, and he and his stepfather-in-law drove them to a stable as a surprise on Christmas Day. His daughters chose to name the pony Trooper.
Look at Trooper. The same month, Colette is known to have penned a letter to college acquaintances in which she described her life as never being so normal or happy. Adding she and her husband were content that their baby son was due to be born in July and that her family would be complete. Things are coming together.
Right.
I can't believe...
I had my doubts at first, but it's really looking up.
I can't believe I broke up with this guy.
So happy we found our way in life.
By 1970, MacDonald had earned the rank of captain. He was planning to study advanced medical training at Yale upon completion of his tour of duty as a Green Beret doctor. This guy just don't want to stop going to school.
Afternoon of February 16th, MacDonald took his daughters to feed and ride the Christmas pony he had bought them. The trio then returned home at about 5:45 p.m.
Forever be known as the Christmas pony.
Right. MacDonald then showered and changed into an old pair of blue pajamas. Okay. After the family ate supper, Colette left the household to attend an evening teaching class at Fort Bragg's North Carolina University Extension.
Fantastic.
According to MacDonald, he then played horsey.
What's that?
Allowing his daughters to ride upon his back as if he was their Shetland pony for a short while before he had put Kristen to bed at approximately 7 p.m. as Kimberly played a game on the coffee table.
She's like, but Danny, I want to go see the pony. He was like, how about you?
We literally just came from there.
Right. How about you just ride on my back? All right. He then slept for an hour before watching Kimberly's favorite television show, Laugh In. He did that with her before his older daughter also went to bed. Colette herself returned home at about 9:40 p.m. that very night. The two had sat on the couch watching television together before Colette decided to go to bed, midway through The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson.
Oh, that's what set him off.
MacDonald had himself fallen asleep in the living room in the early hours of the following day. Look at that. He woke up at 4 in the morning?
Well, 3:42 a.m. on February 17th, dispatchers at Fort Bragg received an emergency phone call from MacDonald, who faintly spoke into the receiver, "Help, 544 Castle Drive, stabbing. 544 Castle Drive, stabbing. Hurry." The operator then heard the sound of the receiver clatter against the wall or the floor. Within 10 minutes, responding military police. Within 10 minutes, they're on a base. Within 10 minutes, responding military police had arrived at the address, initially believing they responded to a domestic disturbance. They found the front door closed and locked and the house dark inside. When no one answered the door, they circled back to the back of the house, where a police sergeant discovered the back screen door closed and unlocked and the back door wide open. Upon entering, the sergeant walked into the master bedroom before running to the front of the house, shouting, "Tell them to get Womack ASAP."
Oh, shit.
I'm guessing Womack was like the captain or something, or general or somebody.
What the hell's going on here? Colette MacDonald was discovered, sprawled on the floor of the master bedroom. She lay on her back, with one eye open and one breast exposed. She had been repeatedly clubbed about her body, with both her forearms later found to be broken. Jeez, forearms. The pathologist would note these wounds had likely been inflicted as Colette had raised her arms to protect her face. Makes sense. In addition, she had been stabbed 21 times in the chest with an ice pick, 16 times about the neck and chest with a knife. Jeez. Her trachea severed in 2 places. A bloodied and torn pajama top was draped upon her chest, and a paring knife lay beside her body. Besides her, Jeffrey MacDonald was found lying face down, alive but wounded, with his head on Colette's chest and one arm around her neck. What's going on here? Wait a minute here. I thought this guy was...
As military personnel approached, he whispered, "Check my kids. I heard my kids crying." 5-year-old Kimberly was found in her bed, having been repeatedly bludgeoned about the head and body and stabbed in the neck with a knife about 8 to 10 times.
What?
She lay on her left side. Her skull had been fractured from at least 2 blows to the right side of her head, and one wound to her face had caused her cheekbone to protrude through her skin.
What the hell?
The wounds to Kimberly's head were so severe in nature to have caused bruising to her brain, coma, and death soon after infliction.
I mean, like instantly, probably. Oh my, that's terrible. Well, across that very hallway, 2-year-old Kristen was found in her own bed, also lying on her left side, with the baby bottle close to her mouth. She'd been stabbed 33 times across the chest, neck, hands, back, and 15 times with an ice pick. Oh my. 2 knife wounds had penetrated her heart, and the ice pick wounds were noted to be shallow. The injuries to her hands were likely defense wounds. On the headboard of the MacDonald's marital bed, the word "pig" was written in 8-inch capital letters. The blood used to write this word was later determined to belong to Colette. Having received impromptu resuscitation, MacDonald sat upright, then exclaimed, "Hey, Zeus Christ, look at my wife. I'm going to kill those bastards. Acid heads." Well, he was immediately taken to a nearby Womack hospital, shouting, "Let me see my kids," as he was carried out of his home on a stretcher.
Well, taken to the Womack Army Medical Center, medical staff discovered the wounds MacDonald had suffered were much less numerous and severe than those inflicted upon his wife and children. He had suffered cuts, bruises, and fingernail scratches to his face and chest, although none of these wounds were life-threatening or required stitches. Fingernail? You better check his wife's fingernails.
What the hell?
MacDonald was also found to have a mild concussion. He had also received a single stab wound between 2 ribs on his right torso. This wound was described by a staff surgeon as a clean, small, sharp incision measuring 5/8 of an inch deep. That's it. And had caused his lung to partially collapse. 5/8 of an inch? It's only this big. MacDonald was released from the hospital after 9 days. Jeez.
Wow. All right, what's going on here? He stabbed himself like a little freak. Questioned by the Criminal Investigation Division, MacDonald claimed at about 2 a.m. on 17th February, he had washed the evening's dinner's dishes before deciding to go to bed. Although because his younger daughter...
At 2 a.m.?
Right. Although because his younger daughter, Christian, had wet his side of the bed, he had taken her to her own bed. Not wishing to wake his wife to change the sheets, he had then taken a blanket from Kristen's room and fallen asleep on the living room couch. According to MacDonald, he was later awakened by Colette and Kimberly's screams, and Colette shouting, Jeff, help! Why are they doing this to me?" As he rose from the couch to go to their aid, he was attacked by 3 male intruders, 1 black and 2 white. The shorter of the 2 white men had worn lightweight, possibly surgical gloves. A fourth intruder he described as a white female with long blonde hair, possibly a wig, and wearing high-heeled, knee-high boots and a white floppy hat, partially covering her face. Damn, who is this bitch? She got one of those cigarettes with the thing
With
on
the
there?
little holders. Yeah. Right. This individual stood nearby holding a lighted candle, chanting, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs." Manson murders had happened by now, and this seems very
Close.
like he's,
All right.
MacDonald claimed that the three males then attacked him with a club and an ice pick, and with the female intruder shouting, "Hit him again!" During the struggle, his pajama top was pulled over his head to his wrist, and he had used this bound garment to ward off thrusts from the ice pick, although eventually he was overcome by his assailants and knocked unconscious in the living room end of the hallway leading to the bedrooms. When he had regained consciousness, the intruders left the house. He had then stumbled from room to room, attempting mouth-to-mouth resuscitation upon each of his daughters to no avail, before discovering his wife. He had pulled a small paring knife from Colette's chest, which he then tossed onto the floor, attempted in vain to find her pulse, then draped his pajama jacket over her body. Then he had phoned for help. When the cops got there, why would he be like, "Check my kids, I heard him screaming," when he just said that he gave him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation?
Right.
Doesn't add up there, pal.
Within minutes of the discoveries at Castle Drive, military police were instructed to check the occupants of all vehicles in and around Fort Bragg.
Don't you have to have like a permit to get into the base?
Right. Seeking 2 white men, 1 black man, and a white woman with blonde hair. Floppy hat. Despite these efforts, military police failed to locate the 4 intruders, and the initiative was abandoned by 6 a.m. Shortly after daylight on 17th February, investigators recovered the murder weapons just outside the back door. These instruments were an old hickory kitchen knife, an ice pick, a 31-inch long piece of lumber with 2 blue threads attached with blood. All 3 were quickly determined to have come from the MacDonald house, and all had been wiped clean of fingerprints. MacDonald later claimed to have never seen these items before. I've never seen those before.
Right. As Army investigators studied the physical evidence, the Army CID quickly came to disbelieve MacDonald's account, as they found very little evidence to support his version of events. Although MacDonald was trained in unarmed combat, the living room where he had supposedly fought for his life against 3 armed assailants showed few signs of a struggle apart from a coffee table that had been knocked onto its side with a pile of magazines beneath the edge.
Right.
Plus a flower plant that had fallen to the floor. Questioning of the MacDonald's neighbors revealed they heard no sounds of a struggle or disturbance within the household in the early hours, but had heard Colette shouting in a loud and angry voice. Oh.
Huh.
The 16-year-old daughter of these neighbors, who occasionally babysat for the family, informed investigators the 2 had seemed indifferent to each other in the month prior to the murders. By February 23rd, Colonel Robert Kirwanek, the Fort Bragg provost marshal, had advised the FBI to discontinue their search for the 4 intruders.
Right.
Like, we
You
got
guys-
the guy already.
You guys just stop searching. We found him. Did you? Yeah.
He was there.
He was there all along. In addition to the lack of damage to the inside of the house, no fibers from MacDonald's torn pajamas tops were found in the living room, where he claimed the garment had been torn when the struggle with the intruders. Oh. However, fibers from the pajama top were found beneath Colette's body and in the bedrooms of both of his daughters. And 1 fiber from his garment was also found under Kristen's fingernail.
Oh.
A single fragment of skin was recovered from beneath one of Colette's fingernails, although this evidence was later lost. You guys didn't let the FBI in.
The FBI's in this, huh?
Blood-stained splinters, likely sourcing from the section of lumber recovered close to the back door of the apartment, were recovered from all 3 bedrooms of the apartment, but not the room where MacDonald claimed to have been attacked.
Well, no blood or fingerprints were found on either telephone MacDonald claimed he had used to call for help after checking each member of his family and attempting to resuscitate them.
Right. Should be blood everywhere.
Right. Furthermore, the blood-stained tip of a surgical glove was also found beneath the headboard where the blood inscription was written. This glove was identical in composition to a medical supply MacDonald invariably kept in the family kitchen.
Oh, jeez.
Although it had rained on the night of February 16th and 17th, and MacDonald also specifically claimed the female intruders' boots were all wet, with rainwater just dripping off them, the sole footprint observed at the scene was a bloody bare footprint located in Kristen's room, leading from the child's bed in the direction of the doorway. Clearly his size, I bet, too, right?
Yeah, this guy didn't even think of. He was like, "Oh, they're not gonna investigate this." No, they will.
I'm a captain in the Army.
Right. By mid-March, the CID had obtained the results of forensic testing of the blood, hair, fiber samples within 544 Castle Drive. and that contradicted MacDonald's accounts of his movements and further convinced investigators of his guilt. For example, Kimberly's blood was also found on his pajama top, even though MacDonald had claimed he was not wearing this garment while in her room attempting resuscitation.
Oh.
MacDonald's own blood was located in significant quantities in only 2 locations: in front of the kitchen cabinet containing rubber gloves, and upon the right side of the hallway of the bathroom sink. And right there, it's over. This guy's a freaking moron.
Investigators also question why Colette's blood was found in Kristen's room, although all 3 victims were found in separate rooms, suggesting they had been attacked separately. Moreover, although blood evidence indicated Kimberly had been attacked as she entered the master bedroom, investigators question why home intruders would bother to carry her back to her bedroom to continue their attack.
Right.
The 4 members of the MacDonald family had different blood types, a statistical anomaly that assisted investigators in determining the movements of each member of the household and their subsequent theory as to a likely scenario of the unfolding.
How the hell does that happen? Just for this right here?
Right. God was like, one day your blood will be the key, I guess, huh? Upon the assumption the 4 individuals discovered by responding military police were the only 4 people in the house, investigators were able to reconstruct a likely scenario of the chain of events that unfolded via blood typing and the nature and severity of the wounds discovered upon each individual.
Jeez. An argument or fight between MacDonald and Colette began in the master bedroom, possibly over the issue of
That's
Kristen.
what I was going to say.
Right.
She wet the bed and he's getting sick of it.
Right. Possibly over the Kristen's repeatedly wetting his side of the bed while sleeping there. Or his adultery. Or that. What, you're really going to be mad about she pissing out your bed? How about that you're freaking other people all around town? You think I don't know?
Everybody knows it. They're all talking. You just see the way they look at me.
I think it's more about the adultery, I bet.
I bet you he was pissed about the wetting of the bed as well.
Yeah, right.
And then it came into that, probably, right?
Right, and then he wanted to do her, and she was like, no, didn't you have enough with Janice and Phyllis?
All right, go talk to your whores.
And he's like, whoosh, bitch!
And then she was like,
And then hell broke loose.
Right.
I get it. Investigators speculated that the argument turned physical. She had probably hit him on the forehead with a hairbrush, which resulted in a mark on his forehead which failed to break his skin. As he retaliated by hitting her, first with his fists, and then beating her with a piece of lumber.
Where did he get the lumber from?
Right.
Jeez.
Kimberly, whose blood and brain serum was found in the doorway, may have walked in after hearing the commotion and was struck at least once on the head, possibly by accident.
Or he was just raged out at that point. Was just
right. Believing Colette dead, MacDonald carried the mortally wounded Kimberly back to her bedroom. He's like, oh, shit.
After stabbing her, MacDonald then proceeded to Kristen's room, carrying the club he had used to bludgeon Kimberly, intent on disposing of the last remaining potential witness. She was 2.
All right.
Before he could do so, Colette, whose blood was found on Kristen's bed covers and on one wall of her room, apparently regained consciousness, stumbled into her younger daughter's bedroom, and threw her own body over Kristen in a desperate effort to protect her. After killing both of them, MacDonald then wrapped Colette's body in a sheet and carried her body back to the master bedroom, leaving a smudged footprint matching her blood type as he exited Kristen's bedroom.
Oh, jeez. CID investigators then theorized that MacDonald attempted to cover up the moitus, using articles on the Manson family murders that he had recently read in March's 1970 issue of Esquire.
Right.
Investigators had found in the living room. Putting on surgical gloves from a medical supply in the kitchen closet, he went to the master bedroom, where he used Colette's blood to write the word pig on the headboard. MacDonald then laid his torn pajama top over her dead body, repeatedly stabbed her in the chest with an ice pick, then discarded the weapons close to the back door of the property after wiping them clean of fingerprints. Finally, MacDonald took a scalpel blade from the supply closet, entered the adjacent bedroom, and stabbed himself once in the chest while standing beside the sink before disposing of the surgical gloves. He had then used the family telephone to summon an ambulance before lying down beside Colette's body as he waited for the military police to arrive. This guy, something happened. What happened?
April 6, 1970, Army investigators formally cautioned and then interrogated MacDonald. He was first offered the chance to recount his version of events and recounted his claims of being attacked by 4 intruders with whom he grappled before falling to the ground, observing the top of some boots, and then being rendered unconscious before regaining consciousness, experiencing symptoms of pneumothorax in the hallway after the intruders had left. And that is abnormal collection of air in the pleural space between the lung and the chest. Sharp one-sided chest pain and shortness of breath. Oh, is that where he supposedly got stabbed or something?
Right.
Investigators were unconvinced of MacDonald's accounts. Midway through questioning, MacDonald was asked a question about his stab wounds by CID investigator William Ivory. He says, "You didn't do it yourself, did you?"
Oh, wow. Well, this very
Why
question...
would he do it in the bathroom anyways? Go in the other room and do it.
Right.
At least the blood's in the damn crime scene.
If anything, you should just done all that shit in the living room and just laid there until somebody came looking for you.
Feeling a little woozy, man.
Right. Just laid there until someone came looking for you and they knocked down the door.
Right. Why? I mean, he messed up by saying he tried to resuscitate them, even though he'd said at the beginning, "I heard them crying.
Well,
go check them."
Right, because he knew they were going to find all kinds of blood.
Yeah, he had to cover his shit
That
there.
part he knew. He was like, okay. But then he didn't realize fiber. Damn, in the 70s, dude? Fiber and all that shit?
Yeah.
Well,
Well, his stuff was torn, so it'd be likely that some fibers would be somewhere.
the question prompted MacDonald to deny this accusation before referencing his punctured wound and his having to persuade hospital doctors to insert a chest tube into his body as he was sure his lung was punctured. Like
But he's a medical doctor. He knew exactly where to incise himself and make it so that...
And like the doctors there didn't know.
Right.
Questioning then focused upon the crime scene and results of the forensic testing. He's like, okay, well, how about this? There. What's his first name? Jeff. What this Jeff? MacDonald denied any of the murder weapons had originated from his household, despite the fact that the section of lumber matched wood from Kimberly's closet. And he just ripped that shit out of the closet.
Well, I'm sure he... Maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
He also claimed to be unaware of how the fiber and blood evidence contradicted his accounts of his movements and actions.
Well, if you claim...
you guys can know that?
Well, if you claim to be in the living room when you got attacked and there's no fibers of your stuff in the living room, it's a little weird.
But there was a lamp knocked over.
The coffee table was on top of the magazines. Didn't you see it?
Come on, man.
This weapon was used on Colette and Kim. It's a brutal weapon. We had 3 people that were overkilled almost, and yet they leave you.
He says almost.
And yet they leave you alive while you were laying there in the hallway.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say too. All 3 of these people were like murdered,
stabbed
a million
multiple times.
They were dead with the freaking hit to the head.
He says, while you were laying there in the hallway, why not give you a good blow or 2 from behind the head with that club and finish you off? You saw them eye to eye. Right. They don't know that you wouldn't be able to identify them at a later date. Why leave you there alive?
Right.
And that's what the investigator asked him.
Right.
What's he got to say about that? That was investigator Franz Grebner questioning MacDonald as to the minor nature of his wounds inflicted to himself by comparison to his wife and daughters on April 6, 1970.
Investigator Robert Shaw then came in and questioned MacDonald as to the lack of disorder and damage within the household, and the lack of any motive, stating that in the investigator's experience, had 4 intruders embarked on a murderous frenzy within a small household, they would expect to encounter evidence such as busted furniture, broken mirrors, bashed in walls, windows being smashed out.
Right?
There's something, right?
The back door was wide open.
Right.
The screen door unlocked, but no sign of forced entry. How'd they get in?
But the only sign...
my question is, why isn't anybody saying, how would these guys get on the base? You can't just go strolling to a damn military base.
Well, the only signs of a struggle were the top-heavy living room coffee table, which had not flipped over all the way in the midst of his struggle, and a flower pot beside the table with the plant upon the carpet and the pot standing upright.
So he took the plant out, threw it on the ground, and put the pot back down. What an idiot. MacDonald was unable to offer a plausible explanation for this observation, and also claimed to be unaware how Kimberly's blood and brain serum were recovered from the master bedroom.
Jeez.
Following a short break, questioning resumed the same afternoon.
First of all, how was his response when he found out that everybody was dead? Because apparently he didn't know. Right? He said they were screaming.
Well, then he claimed that he tried to resuscitate him, though. So, idiot. Following a short break, questioning resumed the same afternoon. Investigator Franz Grebner listed further physical discrepancies between MacDonald's account and the forensic evidence, repeatedly stating all the facts pointed to his having staged the crime scene. You should know you're screwed now, bud.
MacDonald was unable to offer a plausible explanation to this questioning before abruptly accusing Grebner of having run out of ideas and attempted to frame him to maintain a 100% solved homicide rate. He's like, you guys just want to have this. You don't want a cold case.
Well, that says that there's been homicides on this base before. And it's in Fort Bragg, like where a mass shooting happened or something.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A few years ago.
A lot of stuff. Fort Henry or something like that, wasn't it?
Fort Hood down in Texas, I know, but Fort Bragg too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. In response, Grabner stated, "We have all this business here that would tend to indicate that you were involved in this, rather than people who came in from the outside and picked 544 Castle Drive and went up there and were lucky enough to find your door open."
How's that not a movie, first of all? 544 Castle Drive.
When investigators asked MacDonald to submit to a polygraph test to verify his counts, he readily agreed. Although within 10 minutes of the conclusion of the interview, he called investigators to state he had changed his mind and he would not submit to a polygraph
Was polygraph
test.
testing admissible in court back then?
I think it was.
Even on April 6th, MacDonald was relieved of his duties and placed under restriction pending further inquiries. The following day, he was assigned an Army lawyer. At the recommendation of his mother, on April 10th, he instead hired a flamboyant civilian defense attorney, Bernard Siegel, to defend him. Less than a month later, on May 1st, the Army formally charged MacDonald with 3 counts of murder. That same day, MacDonald penned a letter to Colette's mother and stepfather professing his innocence, emphasizing the Army would never admit their error, and speculating his wife's soul may hold infinite patience and understanding of his current legal predicament. Yeah.
Initial Army Article 32 hearing. MacDonald's possible guilt. Overseen by Colonel Warren Rock. Oh, hell of a name. Warren Rock.
Right. Warren Rock.
This happened on July 6, 1970. This hearing lasted until September. MacDonald's lawyer, Bernard Siegel, adopted an offensive strategy on behalf of his client at this hearing, citing numerous examples of incompetence on behalf of the Army CID, who he stated had clumsily and unprofessionally trampled all over the crime scene.
Well, that one,
they didn't have gloves on. They didn't take pictures.
That one evidence did get lost.
Right. Obliterating any trace of evidence that perpetrators might have left, losing vital pieces of evidence, including a single thread found beneath Kimberly's nail.
Right.
MacDonald's pajama trousers. Also, not to mention, 4 torn tips of rubber surgical gloves found in the master freaking bedroom, guys. Come on. This is reeking of incompetence altogether. How can you say this is evidence? Also, not to mention, there's a single layer of skin found beneath one of Colette's fingernails. A single layer.
That was misplaced.
That was
Lost.
misplaced.
Right.
A single layer of skin.
Siegel.
How do you get that? She just scratched just
Well, it's
enough.
probably like a light one, yeah.
Yeah, but you can scratch and get like 1,000 layers.
Yeah, well, you know what they mean. Siegel elicited several examples of incompetence from military police and responding personnel, including testimony revealing that an ambulance driver had stolen MacDonald's wallet from the living room.
What?
And a pathologist who testified to having failed to obtain the children's fingerprints for comparison at the crime scene. The first witness to testify in MacDonald's defense, responding military policeman Kenneth Micah testified.
And they had some people that went to his. I'm sure he was one. Right.
Testified that on the way to answering MacDonald's emergency call on the night of the murders, he observed a blonde woman with a wide-brimmed hat standing on a street corner approximately half a mile from the MacDonald home. He noted that this sighting was unusual given the late hour and the weather.
I doubt this freaking, excuse my language, bitch is standing on a corner at 4 o'clock in the morning.
On a military base.
On a military base. Micah also testified that, contrary to her instruction, an ambulance driver had placed a tilted flower pot upright while at the crime scene.
Why would he do that?
Right. He's like, oh, yeah.
That looks out of place.
That empty flower pot is laying on his side. Let's pick it up.
That looks...
And not put the plant in.
Right. Or pick the table back up. Or the magazines. But whatever.
Colonel Rock. I don't give a shit. That guy should be in the Military Hall of Fame just because of his name.
Colonel Rock.
Colonel Rock. Colonel Rock also testified that he himself went to the scene of the crime and tipped the coffee table over.
Why? He's like, this is ridiculous.
He's like, how heavy is it?
What? These guys are covering for this piece of shit.
And he said as he did that, striking the side of a rocking chair, coming to a rest on its edge. Rock also noted the fact that if no wet footprints and mud were found at the crime scene belonging to the alleged intruders, that meant the crime scene investigators had also failed to find any evidence of large numbers of military police and civilians who had also walked around the house. Right.
That's true.
Okay, here. What are we getting at?
Right.
Yeah, there should be shit everywhere.
All right, Colonel Rock. But why would... Can we get an explanation, please, on why he went and tipped over the coffee table, dude? Was he mad that the dude's family? I mean, sure, he knew him, right?
He walked in. He was like, Jeffrey, you almost had it. You just forgot two things.
Or maybe they helped. Right? Maybe they helped do this crime scene. I don't know. In August, Siegel was approached by a delivery man named William Posey, who claimed the blonde woman MacDonald stated had attacked his family that night might have been a local 17-year-old drug addict and police informant named Helena Whirl Stokely. According to Posey, Stokely had been in the company of 2 or 3 young males in a car parked outside her apartment at approximately 4 a.m. on the morning of the murders. Posey also claimed Stokely had ceased wearing her boots and floppy hat subsequent to February 17th and had dressed in black on the date of the funerals, also stating to him she did not remember what she did on the date of the murders. Posey later relayed this information at the hearing, adding that Stokely
So wait a minute here. So the guy, wait. Now I'm just putting this together here. Jeffrey MacDonald was screaming, "You acid-toting whores," or whatever, acid
thugs or whatever.
And now they're trying to say there was a drug addict.
And this is a delivery guy that has supposedly approached the lawyer that's saying this.
Right.
He says that he relayed this information at the hearing, adding that Stokely had informed him months later that she and her boyfriend could not marry until we go out and kill some more people. What the hell is going on here?
Stokely was located, questioned regarding her whereabouts on February 17. Her answers were vague and self-contradictory. She recalled being in the company of her boyfriend, Gregory Mitchell, on the night of 16th February, and going out for a ride in a car in the early hours of the following day, driving aimlessly, but claimed to have been so far out on mescaline, so far out on drugs.
LSD.
Yeah. Oh,
acid.
What the hell, dude? We might be onto something here. What's going on? So, claiming to be so high on acid or LSD that she could not say for sure whether she had been at the house or not. Could I have been? Sure. Was I?
Who knows?
Although witnesses had claimed Stokely had admitted her involvement in the murders, with several also remembering her wearing clothing similar to that described by MacDonald on the date in question, she was not subpoenaed to testify. Why not? Procedural irregularities regarding investigating conduct into Stokely were also highlighted by Siegel at this hearing. He was like, all right, you guys didn't take her seriously. You didn't even question her right or even book her right. There's no paperwork on the questioning.
Can you trust a druggie?
Yeah, but now it's making sense.
Following favorable character testimony from several acquaintances and a military psychiatrist, MacDonald testified for 3 days in mid-August. Sections of his testimony contradicted what he had informed investigators on April 6th, including his claim on this occasion to have actually moved Colette's body, having found her a little bit propped up against a chair before he just sort of laid her flat on the floor. He didn't say that originally.
Right.
He also stated that possibly because of his surgical background, he had sort of rinsed off his hands as he checked his own injuries in the bathroom before calling for help. Referencing the type B blood found in the kitchen.
Wait a minute. If it's a situation like that, dude, you're not. I mean, I guess if you are one of those people who are clear-headed in every freaking moment, I don't know. Why would you even care about rinsing off your freaking hands?
Right.
Yeah, so I don't know about that.
Referencing the type B blood found in the kitchen, MacDonald testified that he may have also washed his hands in the kitchen sink for some reason prior to making the phone call to emergency services. Well, you're a liar.
Yeah, I want to be washing.
Now,
I want to be washing. Right.
This guy had to open his mouth again.
Right. And now I'm leaning back.
Right.
Jeez. Contrary to medical reports and his earlier accounts, he also claimed to have located 2 bumps on the back of his head and 2 or 3 puncture wounds in his upper left chest. Other wounds to his right bicep, and approximately 10 ice pick wounds to his abdomen on the 17th or 18th.
They wouldn't have noticed any of these at the hospital?
All of which have healed without treatment, and none of which had required surgery. Right. If you're going to stab somebody with the ice pick.
Well, they did say that the little girl had
right.
shallow wounds.
Right,
So
it wasn't.
maybe
a dull one. Maybe you should keep your ice pick sharp, bud.
Well, they dulled it on Colette's body.
Right. Questioned in regards to his infidelity, MacDonald admitted that he had been unfaithful on 2 occasions, but insisted Colette had not known about either affair. He also claimed their time at Fort Bragg had been the most content of their married life. And there's letters to prove
that.
I mean,
according to her, anyways. MacDonald's testimony was followed by that of a clinical psychologist who testified as to conclusions of a series of tests he had conducted on MacDonald. This expert testified that the test revealed an extraordinary absence of anxiety, depression, and anger in MacDonald with regard to the loss of his family.
Right. There should be, yeah.
And that his report concluded he was able to muster massive denial or repression to such a degree that the impact of the recent events of his life has been blunted.
Right. There's nothing there.
Furthermore, this extreme psychological response would likely see an individual convey himself as victimized and perhaps somewhat of a martyr.
To the chagrin of Colonel Krenek, October 13, 1970, Colonel Rock issued a report recommending that charges be dismissed against Jeffrey MacDonald as insufficient evidence existed to prove his guilt, adding his belief no truth existed in the charges, that the nature of the moitas led him to believe that the perpetrators were either insane or under influence of narcotics. Colonel Rock also recommended that civilian authorities further investigate the frickin' horror stand on the side of the street, Stokely. Later that same month, all charges were formally dismissed. Although a new CIA investigation tasked with finding the murders was assembled on February 1971, when MacDonald still considered a suspect.
Well, in December, MacDonald received an honorable discharge from the Army and initially returned to New York City, where he briefly worked as a doctor before relocating to Long Beach, California in July of 71.
So why did he get an honorable? Why did they discharge him?
Right. And then, well, I mean, his whole family got murdered, so they're probably like, yeah, you should probably not be in the Army anymore.
But it's probably the best place for him to be.
Maybe.
In the Army on a base.
I don't know. Yeah, but he moved to Long Beach in 71 in an effort to put the past behind him and to distance himself from the constant reminders of his wife and daughters. He obtained employment as an emergency room physician at the St. Mary Medical Center, frequently working long hours.
Look at that shit.
He also became an instructor at the UCLA Medical School, a medical director of the Long Beach Grand Prix, a lecturer on the subject of the recognition and treatment of child abuse, and a participant in the development of a national cardiopulmonary resuscitation training program.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Well, jeez. Well, at this time, MacDonald lived in a $350,000 Huntington Beach condominium apartment and is known to have lived a promiscuous lifestyle prior to forming a long-term relationship with a 22-year-old airline stewardess named Candy Kramer.
Candy Kramer.
He did this in the late 70s.
Wow.
In the years immediately following the dismissal of the murder charges, MacDonald received an abundance of emotional and public support. Damn, this dude was like a martyr, I guess.
Pretty much.
Oh, my. How this poor guy. His
whole
whole family
life
murdered.
got turned upside down.
His whole family murdered, and look at him. He's so strong. He also wrote letters to several magazines and newspapers detailing that's where he's a piece of shit if he is innocent.
Right.
He wrote to letters.
Why would he need? I mean, why is he doing this?
He wrote to magazines and
He
newspapers.
doesn't need the money.
Right.
He lives in a $350,000 house.
I am writing you to tell you that I am fully prepared to make as much money as I can off this.
Sad.
And I am willing to let you guys make some money too. You piece of shit. This guy, I hope he's found to be guilty. Because if we're doing this for not...
Within days of the dismissal, MacDonald began granting press interviews and media appearances, most notably on the December 15, 1970 episode of The Dick Cavett Show, during which he appeared flippant as he complained about the Army investigation and their focus on him as a suspect. On this occasion, he claimed to have sustained 23 wounds, some of which he claimed were potentially fatal. Now,
Oh, my.
MacDonald's stepfather-in-law, Alfred Kassab, had initially believed in his stepson-in-law's innocence, and both he and Colette's mother, Mildred, had testified in support of him during the Army's Article 32 hearing, informing the press, "My wife and I feel very strongly about Captain MacDonald's innocence. After all, it was our daughter and 2 grandchildren who were butchered."
I mean, right? If he can convince those guys. However, by 1970 in November, Kassab had grown suspicious of MacDonald's repeated reluctance to provide him with a copy of the 2,000-page transcript of the Article 32 hearing. In an apparent effort to discourage Kassab's efforts to obtain a copy of his transcript, MacDonald told his stepfather-in-law that he and some Army colleagues had actually tracked down, tortured, and eventually murdered one of the 4 alleged murderers.
What the hell?
Why would you say... Kassab's suspicion greatly increased following MacDonald's casual and dismissive demeanor on the Dick Cavett Show. Just days after he had himself hand-delivered 500 copies of an 11-page letter to members of Congress requesting a congressionally mandated reinvestigation of the Moitas, and he and his wife publicly turned against MacDonald.
Good. Kassab successfully obtained a copy of the Article 32 transcript from the Army in February of 1971. He repeatedly studied the document, realizing MacDonald's claims were inconsistent with the physical facts, and concluding his account was nothing more than a tissue of lies
Right.
that repeatedly contradicted the known facts of the case. One example was MacDonald's assertion that he had sustained life-threatening injuries, including 10 ice pick wounds, during the alleged physical assault at the hands of assailants. Kassab had met MacDonald in the hospital less than 18 hours after the attack and observed him sitting up in bed, eating a meal, with very little bandaging or other medical dressing on his body at all.
Wow.
An examination of hospital... Why didn't he say that at the beginning?
Right.
Then, an examination of hospital records confirmed MacDonald had received no such wounds. Right. Kassab also discovered that within weeks of the murders of his family, MacDonald had begun dating a young woman employed at Fort Bragg.
What the hell?
He and his wife also later discovered that by 1969, he had rekindled his relationship with Penny Wells as
Excuse me,
well.
though. Oh, within the weeks.
Right.
They've been fighting about something. Oh, man, I don't understand what's going on here. And I have no backstory on this guy, head injuries or anything. You know, what we usually see. I mean, this is watching a freaking laugh-in show with his daughters.
Well, it said that they found out he rekindled his relationship with Penny Wells, who he dated after Colette, and then before he got back with Colette, so maybe she found out about it.
I'm sure. With the cooperation of Colonel Kowalik and the other Army investigators, Kassab visited the crime scene for several hours in order to compare the physical evidence against MacDonald's testimony in March 1971.
Man, this dude just is
Right.
doing his own damn audit.
This personal assessment ultimately convinced Kassab of MacDonald's guilt, and he resolved to devote his life to pursue all legal avenues to bring MacDonald's to justice.
Good for you.
Wrongful death or something.
Good for you, stepdaddy.
As the Army's investigation was completed, the only way Kassab could bring MacDonald to trial was via citizen's complaint filed through the United States Department of Justice. He filed this complaint early in 1972. However, because the murders had occurred while MacDonald was serving in the Army and he had been since discharged, the citizen's complaint was declared moot. So you can't do it, but it wasn't a citizen.
Right.
The FBI refused to take on the case.
Of course they did.
They're like, are you go against the government? I mean, the Army? Not going to happen, boys. We're in the middle of Vietnam War.
Right. Right, exactly. Between 1972 and 74, the case remained trapped in limbo in the Department of Justice as legal issues were raised and debated over whether sufficient evidence and probable cause existed for indictment and prosecution. April 30th, 1974, the Kassabs, their attorney Richard Kahn, and CID agent Peter Kearns presented a citizen's complaint against MacDonald to U.S. Chief District Court Judge Algernon Butler, requesting the convening of a grand jury to indict MacDonald for the murders. Following month, Justice Department Attorney Victor Warhide ruled the case worthy of prosecution.
Oh, all right. Look at that. August 12th, 1974. Grand jury convened before the U.S. District Judge Franklin Dupree, Raleigh, North Carolina, to hear the legal proceedings. 75 witnesses were called to testify. Jeffrey MacDonald was the first individual to testify at this hearing. His testimony lasted 5 days.
Jeez.
During which he conceded that although he had publicly resolved to pursue all legal avenues following 1970 dismissal of the murder charges against him and to hire investigators, he had failed to do so. Nonetheless, he was adamant that he'd made his own efforts to identify the perpetrators and to locate Helena Stokely, the acid chick with the crooked hat.
Right.
He also claimed the numerous fabrications he had provided to the Kassabs and to sections of the media in the intervening years were to placate his in-laws, and that he had received more stab and puncture wounds to his body than recorded in contemporary medical records, which he blamed on malpractice. Okay. He's like, well, they just didn't do it. They didn't write it down. You're going to tell me a whole family got murdered and you're one of those victims that came in, they're not going to write down every single...
Right.
Get out of here. I don't care if it's a scab. It was a dried up scab on his knee. Looks like it might have happened a week or so ago.
When asked by Victor Warhide if he would submit to either a polygraph or sodium amytal test to verify his version of events, MacDonald read a statement prepared by his attorneys denying their request. Other witnesses testify, including surgeons on duty at Womack Hospital who examined MacDonald and who testified that, aside from his punctured lung, MacDonald was, quote-unquote, not in any great danger medically. And that save for a superficial stab wound to his upper left arm and abdomen, MacDonald had no other stab wounds to his body.
Wow.
A reporter who had covered the Article 32 hearing and interviewed MacDonald after the charges were dropped also stated that, in his experience, individuals under the influence of LSD seldom become violent, and that, by contrast, those who consume amphetamines frequently do.
Oh.
Are they trying to say he was on some drugs?
Okay, what's going on here?
Meth?
December 12th, a former chief of psychiatry who had also testified at the Article 32 hearing, Bruce Bailey, he comes in to testify. Bailey stated, when discussing his family and events surrounding their deaths with him, Jeffrey MacDonald would occasionally become emotional, become tearful, of course, but recovered quickly. Too quickly, right? Well, I don't know. You can't judge people's griefs if they do it different, man.
Well,
Bailey also testified he found MacDonald to be a controlling individual who was extremely dependent on what others thought of him. Oh, geez. And that he would often launch into a verbal tirade to allow his deep-seated emotions to become expressed by other means. No shit. He lashed out, huh? He's a lasher. When questioned as to whether MacDonald suffered from a mental disorder, Bailey testified he did not. Although he could not discount the possibility of him murdering members of his family in a situation of extreme stress.
all right. Well, this testimony was followed by a Philadelphia-based psychologist who conceded that had MacDonald committed such an act of violence, he would successfully completely block the episode from his mind. Yeah, most people do when they're psychos. Chief of the FBI's Crime Laboratory Chemistry Section, Paul Stombaugh, then testified the pajama top placed over Colette's body had been heavily bloodstained before the garment was torn, and that contrary to MacDonald's claims, a lack of tearing at the edges of these holes proved that all 48 holes within this item of clothing had been inflicted while the garment was stationary rather than in motion, which proves the point of them saying that he placed it over her body and stabbed her with an ice pick a bunch of times. Damn, how do they know that, dude? I mean,
it's crazy. Stombaugh also testified all the cuts within all garments other than the pajama top had been inflicted with the old hickory knife found outside the family home, and not the paring knife he claimed to have removed from Colette's body.
Right.
That the majority of his blood had belonged to Colette, and her blood had transferred onto the garment on at least 4 locations prior to the garment being torn. Furthermore, the club used to bludgeon Colette and Kimberly, which MacDonald had denied any knowledge of, had also been sawed from one of the mattress slates in Kimberly's bedroom. I thought it was in the closet.
I thought it matched the closet wood.
And a single hair found in Colette's right palm had sourced from her own body and not a blonde hair intruder. No one said the blonde hair intruder got involved.
Why the hell did he saw off the bed slat? And if there was evidence of him sawing it off, wouldn't the saw be somewhere and there'd be sawdust on the ground or something, right?
So were they...
Okay.
What is it now?
I don't know. MacDonald was called to testify before the grand jury on January 21st, 1975. On this occasion, he was markedly arrogant and sarcastic when questioned with regards to issues such as infidelity or the prosecution's illustration of forensic contradictions between his version of events and the physical evidence, and on one occasion shouting, "I have no idea. I don't even know what crap you're trying to feed me," in response to a question as to how his blood and Colette's blood had transferred onto a sheet taken from Kristen's bedroom into the master bedroom. He also refused to discuss the results of a private polygraph test to which he had consented in 1970, the results of which had been given to Bernard Siegel, indicating he would have had to speak with his attorney on this matter before consenting to this line of inquiry. I'm guessing that was he failed that, huh?
Right. Following a brief recess, MacDonald read a statement prepared by his attorneys denying the prosecution's request to discuss the results of the 1970 polygraph, contending Warhide had violated attorney-client privilege. He then read his own statement to the jury, claiming 5 long years had passed since the murder of my family and my efforts to start a life afresh. And the questions posed by the prosecution were ones that I had to live with for 5 years. 5 long years.
Oh, you poor guy. January 24th, 1975, the grand jury formally indicted MacDonald on 3 counts of murder. Indicted! Within the hour, he was arrested in California. January 31st, he was freed upon a $100,000 bail raised by friends and colleagues, pieces of shit, pending disposition of the charges, although he was arraigned on May 23rd and pleaded not guilty to the murders on this date.
Right.
July 29th, Judge Dupree denied the double jeopardy and speedy trial arguments successively filed by his attorneys and allowed the proposed trial date of August 18th to stand.
All right, they going for double jeopardy. He was like, well, he actually
didn't be
didn't.
tried for the same crime. Well, he was never. It was
dismissed, bud.
Although the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled to stay the proceedings on August 15th. Okay. Panel of this court ordered the indictment dismissed. What?
Wow.
The panel of this court ordered the indictment dismissed on the grounds of a defendant's right to a speedy trial on January 23rd, 1976. MacDonald himself later claimed to weep tears of relief rather than tears of joy upon hearing the news, and later recollected to return to a big celebration that his ordeal was now over.
Is it, though? It has to be over now, right?
I don't know.
Well, the story, as MacDonald told it, had to be fabrication. It could not have happened the way he said it happened. None of his story holds together. I mean, none of what he says he did. He claims to have been attacked in the living room. He claims to have sustained 10 ice pick wounds. Now, those 10 ice pick wounds, nobody has ever seen. No doctor in a hospital ever saw them. Alfred Kavsib said this, commenting on the inconsistencies of MacDonald's accounts of his actions and wounds sustained on the night of the Moitas, as contained in his transcript Article 32 hearing. He said this in 1976.
Well, look at this. An appeal on behalf of the government led to a reinstatement of the indictment via an 8-0 margin within the United States Supreme Court on May 1st, 1978. In response to this decision, Alfred Kassab informed the press he and his wife welcomed the development, stating it has been a tremendous personal pressure to have someone running around that you're convinced killed your daughter and grandchildren. On October 22nd, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals rejected MacDonald's double jeopardy arguments. Yeah, now they have to. The Supreme Court refused to review this decision on March 19th, 1979, and they said, he's going to trial, baby.
Right. MacDonald was brought to trial July 16th, 1979. Charged 3 counts of murder. He was tried in Raleigh, North Carolina before Judge Dupree again pleaded not guilty to the charges. MacDonald was defended by Bernard Segal and Wade Smith.
Damn, Bernard Segal's been on this dude's payroll for 10 years.
James Blackburn and Brian Murdaugh prosecuted this case. Initial jury selection began on this very date and would continue for 3 days. Although Jeffrey's lawyers had been confident of the acquittal, there were successive rulings against the defense. The first such ruling was Judge Dupree's refusal to admit into evidence a 1979 psychiatric evaluation of MacDonald, which suggested that an individual of his personality and mindset was highly unlikely to be capable of killing his family.
Okay, this tells me that the lawyer knew this psychiatric guy and was like, hey, give him a good thing.
Right. Dupree justified this refusal by stating that, as MacDonald's attorneys had not entered an insanity plea for their client.
Right.
He did not wish for the trial to be hindered by an opinionated and contradictory psychiatric testimony from prosecution and defense witnesses.
Right.
He's like,
so if he's
so
denying,
you're trying to say he's insane?
Well, if he's denying the defense's psychiatric evaluation, then they should deny the prosecution's psychiatric stuff too. Then, right?
Right. A further defense setback was the judge's ruling against a motion to suppress the introduction of MacDonald's pajama top as evidence.
Why the hell would you suppress that?
That's the major key part. They're like, hey, all right, we'll go. You know that
pajama top that was on top of his wife's body, stained in blood.
Never
we
happened.
Can't use that for evidence.
Never happened, bud.
Oh my!
Judge is like, really, really?
Jeez. On the first day of the trial, Judge Dupree allowed the prosecution to admit into evidence the March 1970 copy of Esquire magazine, which was found in the MacDonald house, part of which contained the lengthy article relating to the Manson family murders.
I don't know about that. I guess there's
identical.
similarities. Yeah.
However, Dupree also refused the prosecution's request to allow any sections of the earlier Article 32 transcripts from MacDonald's 1970 Army hearing.
Yeah, they weren't allowing that shit.
Ruling that as the current trial was a civilian trial and there was a military trial for Article 32.
Yeah, you can't bring up any of that shit. That's everything.
Right, because in Article 32 was actually, they say that they're suggesting that he murdered his family, but they're calling this, it was opinionated because it was never found. So.
All right, you can't do anything about that.
All right. I mean, I guess, right? You got to have it fair.
In his opening statement to the jury, delivered on the 19th of July, 1979, James Blackburn outlined the burden of proof the prosecution faced in proving MacDonald's guilt, that the prosecution intended to meet this burden, and that the murders had been committed with malice aforethought. Blackburn then outlined the prosecution's intention to outline both physical and circumstantial evidence indicating MacDonald's guilt, and introduced numerous witnesses, imploring the jurors to, I just want you guys to listen to the evidence that comes from the witness stand. Examine this evidence as it is shown to you, and I just want you guys to reach your own conclusion.
Hey, like every other jury trial in history.
Right. Blackburn finished his opening statement by saying to the jurors, basically, we believe the physical evidence points to the fact that, unfortunately, one person, not two, not three, not four, or more, killed Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen. And that person is the defendant.
Right. Well, Wade Smith then argued on behalf of the defense. Smith referenced the events of February 17th, 1970, the Army investigation, and subsequent dismissal of all charges, repeatedly emphasizing the case had occurred over 9 years ago, and that in the intervening years, Jeff, why they put that in quotations,
That's what I call him, said Jeffrey.
had done his utmost to rebuild his life, while others would not allow him to forget his painful past. Their client had now been brought to trial to face the charges of murder of his own family. Smith emphasized to the jurors their ability to relieve their client of his ongoing ordeal by acquitting him of all charges.
Right. This man has been living for the past 10 years. You don't think he thinks about this daily, and now he has to come up and what is going on? He's trying to rebuild his life.
Sorry, lawyer, that's not a good enough reason for me to be like, well, he's been living with it for 10 years. He must not be guilty.
Right. One of the chief prosecution witnesses to testify was Paul Stombaugh, whom the prosecution summoned to testify August 7th. Stombaugh demonstrated to the jurors how MacDonald's pajama top had been pierced by 48 small, smooth, and cylindrical ice pick holes after the garment had been placed atop his wife's chest. After.
Why would he place it on her chest and do that anyways? Doesn't make sense. But
Stombaugh contended that in order for the holes to have been as smooth and devoid of fraying or tearing, that the garment would have to remain stationary, an extremely unlikely occurrence if MacDonald contended that he wrapped it around his hands to defend himself from blows from an attacker wielding an ice pick. Okay.
Right.
That's true. So if he wrapped around, yeah.
Right. Furthermore, Stombaugh demonstrated that by folding the garment in the manner depicted in the crime scene photographs, all 48 holes could have been made by 21 thrusts of the ice pick through the garment in an identical pattern, implying Colette had been repeatedly stabbed through the pajama top while the garment was lying on her body. Although Siegel, your math doesn't add up. 48 holes made by 21 thrusts? That's 42. Right? If the garment was folded in half and he stabbed through it and there was 48 holes when you unfolded it, that would be only 42.
Right.
The hell? Well, although Siegel subjected Stombaugh to harsh cross-examination, repeatedly raising his voice as he challenged Stombaugh's credentials and forensic methods, Stombaugh remained steadfast as to his conclusions. See, that's where the lawyer's messing up. You're raising your voice and you're doing all this, and this guy's just like, yeah, buddy, not going to work with me. I'm in the Army, dude.
Right. Further piece of damaging evidence against MacDonald was an audio tape. Made on April 6, 1970, interview by military investigators, which was played in the courtroom immediately after the jurors had returned from visiting the still intact crime scene.
Damn, dude.
They
Imagine how that smelled.
They've been there for 10 years.
No.
Because it's still ongoing. I guess you can't mess with it.
No. The crime happened January of 1970. This is only April of 1970, where the interview took place.
Oh, when the jurors went there, yeah. The jury heard...
Wait.
No, yeah, I know.
The jurors had returned from visiting the still intact crime scene 10 years later?
Right.
So the house was just sitting, I guess. Yeah, because the case was never closed.
Right. The jury heard MacDonald's matter-of-fact, indifferent recitation of the moitus. They heard him become angry, defensive, emotional in response to suggestions by the investigators that he had committed the murders. He asked the investigators why would they think he, who had a beautiful family and everything going for him in life, could have murdered his family in cold blood for no reason at all. Why? The jury also heard investigators later confront him with their knowledge of his extramarital affairs, to which MacDonald murmured, "Oh, you guys are more thorough than I thought."
Jeez.
What a moron.
Despite earlier rulings against the defense counsel, the prosecution was also hampered by the lack of an obvious motive for MacDonald to have committed the murders. He had no history of violence or domestic abuse against his wife or children.
Right.
The defense also argued their crime scene was hopelessly compromised during the investigation, and potential evidence either was destroyed, lost, or remained uncollected.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah,
that's gonna hurry up.
That was a terrible crime scene investigation there. The CID, I hope they upgraded.
I doubt it. MacDonald's defense attorneys also called several favorable character witnesses, plus a forensic expert named James Thornton, to the stand. Thornton attempted to rebut Stombaugh's contention that the pajama top was stationary on Colette's chest rather than wrapped around MacDonald's wrist as he warded off blows, stating he had attempted to stab a pajama top wrapped around a ham with an ice pick as an assistant moved the item back and forth, resulting in perfectly cylindrical holes with no tearing around the edges of the garment. That's stupid. If the garment was wrapped around this dude's hands and it was off his chest, like they said, that means he wouldn't. When they're stabbing through it, they would just be stabbing through the pajama top, not him, because it's around his arms. This dude's stabbing into a ham, so of course the strike marks would be cleaner because it's got something to stab into after the cloth.
Right.
Doesn't make no sense.
No. Following Thornton's testimony, prosecutors Murtaugh and Blackburn staged an impromptu reenactment of the alleged attack.
Nice. They got some. What do they call that? Improv going on here.
They're going to do this about the attack on MacDonald, as he says. Murtaugh wrapped a pajama top of the same material around his hands and attempted to fend off a series of blows that Blackburn attempted to inflict on him with the ice pick used in the moitus.
Damn.
The resultant,
They really went all out with this, huh?
The resultant ice picks holes in the pajama top were jagged and elongated. Not smoothly cylindrical like the ones within the garment recovered from Colette's body. It was like, it's not even.
Like I just stated.
Right. Furthermore, Murtaugh received a small wound on his right arm.
Oh.
MacDonald had received no defensive wound on his arms or
the
hands.
shirt's on his... Yeah, I didn't think about that.
In addition, aside from a small smear of blood discovered upon the Esquire magazine and a single speck of blood upon MacDonald's spectacles, no other traces of blood were recovered from the room in which MacDonald claimed to have ever fought for his very life against three assailants.
Three males who were supposedly drugged out.
Right. And he got knocked unconscious.
All right.
Get out of here.
One of the final defense witnesses Siegel subpoenaed to testify was Helena Stokely. Intent on extracting a confession from her that she had been one of the intruders MacDonald claimed had entered his house, murdered his family, and attacked him. Siegel talked to Stokely in private for over 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Attempting to persuade her to confess to end MacDonald's years of suffering unjustly.
Right.
Also promising her immunity from prosecution due to the expiration of the statute of limitations. There is no statute of limitations on
For murder.
Stokely...
Accessory, I guess.
Maybe, right, that's true. Stokely repeatedly informed Siegel she was unable to help him. She also denied ever having seen MacDonald and refused to testify to acts she was adamant she did not commit. Well, she also admitted back then that she didn't know.
Right. So, but they can't get those.
Right. Well, she was druggy anyways. They're going to take that. Under oath, Stokely denied any culpability in the murders and any knowledge of who may have committed the acts. Insistent she was unable to recall her whereabouts on the date of the murder, Stokely emphasized her extensive drug use in 1970 and the intervening years, adding the night of February 16th to 17th, 1970 was by no means the first or last night in which she was unable to recall her whereabouts. That's true.
Hey, what do you do?
Just being honest.
Right. Following this testimony, Murdahl and Siegel alternately argued before the Judge Supreme for dismissal. They're like, how can, after all what we've seen, it's been dismissed in every court up to now. I mean, come on. How long do we have to have this guy suffer? He's like, if you're not going to dismiss this, how about you introduce testimony from the witnesses to whom Stokely had earlier allegedly confessed? How about that?
But that's in the Article 62 things where they already couldn't do that.
32.
62.
Was it 62? I think it was 32. Right. So like, how about if either you dismiss this or let's get some witnesses up here who Stokely already said she done did
can't
this.
do that.
Well, on August 20th, Dupree refused this introduction of testimony, citing legal trustworthiness requisites and stating the introduction of these witnesses would add no further value to the proceedings than what they had experienced from Stokely's own testimony.
Right.
Which is true. But still, if it was in, I think it should evidence should be.
Final witness to testify on behalf of the defense was MacDonald himself, who testified on his own behalf on August 23rd and 24th. MacDonald was first questioned by Bernard Siegel, who sought to humanize his client in the eyes of the jury. He began his questioning by asking MacDonald about his family. MacDonald described each family member and their individual personalities, saying the family shared almost everything. We were all friends.
Right.
Colette and I shared the children growing up. We shared our life experiences. He also claimed the reason he had never remarried was the fact he was unable to forget his wife and children, whom he thought about daily. Yeah. He was like, a lawyer?
Right.
How sympathetic should I be? He said yes.
Siegel then asked MacDonald to recount his family background, his career at Fort Bragg, his family's general lifestyle in February 1970. He then produced several family photographs and artifacts, asking MacDonald to describe each of them or their circumstances surrounding each photograph and to identify the individual in each image. MacDonald then recounted his life in the years since the deaths of his family, describing his decision to relocate to California as an effort to distance himself from the well-wishers and insisting the reason he worked up to 80 hours a week was that it was easier than sitting and thinking about his family.
Probably true. In both cases, either it was or was not good.
Right.
Following day, James Blackburn cross-examined MacDonald. He outlined every piece of physical and circumstantial evidence recovered at the crime scene, which contradicted MacDonald's own accounts of the assailants attacking him and murdering his family, instead indicated his own guilt.
Right.
Blackburn typically began each question with a statement to the effect of, Dr. MacDonald, should the jury find from the evidence, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
MacDonald was unable to offer any plausible explanations for these discrepancies. Again, just like he had in Article 32 back in the day.
Right.
For example, he was unable to explain how the piece of lumber used as a weapon came from a mattress slat on Kimberly's bed, but claimed there may have been some wood in the utility room.
Oh no!
Later adding his insistence the club which had struck him across the head was sort of smooth. It may have been a baseball bat as opposed to a wooden instrument. He also claimed the earlier testimony of Army investigators pertaining to his questioning on in Article 32 hearings was unreliable due to the poor conduct of the investigators and the fact several weeks had elapsed between the murders and his formal questioning. Gives a shit.
Wow.
Gives a shit how many weeks it was.
When questioning MacDonald with regards to various discrepancies in his accounts of his movements, the injuries he sustained, and the positioning of his pajama jacket upon his body throughout the night of the murders, Blackburn succeeded in highlighting several discrepancies in MacDonald's accounts by comparison to previous interviews transcripts and his current claims, and the contradictions of his testimony with the forensic evidence. In response, Siegel repeatedly raised objections to this line of questioning. I object, claiming the discrepancies were misleading. Your Honor, that's misleading. His objections were frequently overruled. One more outburst like that, Siegel, I'll hold you in contempt of court.
I hold myself in contempt.
Following a brief recess, Blackburn resumed his cross-examination.
Well, on this occasion, he illustrated instances of MacDonald adjusting his testimony regarding having moved his wife's body after learning fibers from his pajama top were found beneath her body.
Oh, no.
So when he learned that, he changed the story up,
Right.
He then asked direct questions regarding the location of blood, fiber, and other physical evidence within his apartment, which directly contradicted his accounts of his movements and those of members of his family. Blackburn frequently accompanied these questions with a hypothetical suggestion that, quote-unquote, if the jury should find from the evidence...
That's the whole thing right there, man.
...forensic or circumstantial evidence which contradicted MacDonald's testimony, would he have any plausible explanation for these discrepancies? MacDonald did frequently attempt to rebuff this line of questioning, but was typically unable to offer any explanation for this
How
evidence.
do you, though? With evidence is here. You can't.
Nope.
August 28th, 1979. Both counsels delivered their closing arguments before the jury. James Blackburn argued first outlining the injuries inflicted upon Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen, as opposed to MacDonald.
Right. Anybody knows you're attacking a household like that.
Right. Everybody's get the same.
Well, not only that, I would assume usually we've seen these murders and stuff like that. The guy is always the most bludgeoned because he's the guy.
Right.
Well, trust me, we got plenty of cases like axe murder cases and shit. The guys usually mess up way more than everybody else.
Messed up. He also outlined the medical testimony, which listed the sole serious injury MacDonald had suffered as being the pneumothorax wound to his chest, stating that even if the prosecution conceded the wound was potentially life-threatening, the wound was the sole serious injury he had sustained. That's it.
Not 10 ice picks.
Not a bludgeon to the head.
Right. Well, he did have a thing to the forehead where she hit him with the brush, apparently.
Referencing the life and death struggle MacDonald claimed to have engaged in with the alleged intruders, Blackburn stated the evidence indicated a struggle had occurred in MacDonald's home, but the struggle was between only one white male and one white female.
Right.
The white female was Colette, and the white male was Jeffrey. And everyone in the courtroom gasped, and the judge was like, Order! Order!
Oh, jeez, dude. Blackburn then poured scorn on the character witnesses who had earlier testified MacDonald had been a good husband and father, then returned to the evidence, stating he had to get a jab in real quick.
Right.
He stated, quote unquote, if we convince you by the evidence he did it, we don't have to show you he is the sort of person that could have done it. Right? Obviously, right.
Very true.
He then closed his initial argument by stating, I can only tell you from the physical evidence that things do not lie, but I suggest that people can and do. The following day, Bernard Siegel and Wade Smith delivered their closing arguments on behalf of the defense. Siegel focused much of his closing argument upon the campaign of persecution. Dude, it's not working no more.
Right.
His client had been subjected to by the legal system for almost a decade in attempts to frame him for the murder of his family, describing the prosecution's case as a house built on sand.
Right. It was like, there's no way. Portraying MacDonald as a loving husband and father, Siegel then emphasized MacDonald's insistence from the outset that 4 intruders had been responsible for the murders. Not 1, but 4.
Why didn't the father-in-law ever bring up to these people that MacDonald told him he hunted down and killed one of them?
Right.
Why wouldn't that be said?
Right.
I mean, doesn't make any sense.
Siegel spoke for over 3 hours, using virtually all the defense's allotted time. Blackburn and Murdaugh agreed to forfeit 10 minutes of their allotted rebuttal time to allow Smith to make an argument to the jury.
Well, they knew. They were like, this is over.
Right. Following a brief recess, Smith appealed to the jurors to question the lack of an obvious motive for MacDonald to have committed the murders. He referenced the family photographs of MacDonald enjoying the company of his wife and children.
How many times have you seen a murderer enjoying the company of his wife and children?
He said, these photographs here, look how happy they are. This is in the years, even weeks before their deaths. He also says, it makes no sense. There is no motive. He then appealed to the jurors to give MacDonald the peace that this poor man has sought for almost a decade. He has been tried, ridiculed for 10 years while his family was massacred underneath his own.
Yeah, well, in his rebuttal argument, James Blackburn referenced Smith's earlier observation regarding the unbelievability of a successful doctor murdering his family, but contended the events of February 17, 1970 occurred because events overtook themselves too fast. Everything else, ladies and gentlemen, we say, and that crime scene flowed from that moment.
Right.
I mean, it's a crime of passion, isn't that what they say?
Once it starts, you can't stop it.
He then referred once again to the physical evidence, stating that that's all you got to refer to, physical evidence, man. Stating that evidence doesn't matter if he didn't have a motive to.
Right. Reasonable
Stating
doubt.
the evidence unequivocally illustrated the chain of events which occurred and which only pointed to MacDonald's guilt. Blackburn closed his rebuttal argument by stating that although the prosecution was convinced of MacDonald's guilt, they only wished he was not, given the final moments of the victims and who it was that was going to make them die, adding that the defendant would never have peace.
Final address to the jury. Judge Dupree informed the panel they had three choices to choose from. You can either find Jeffrey MacDonald not guilty. You can either find Jeffrey MacDonald guilty of first-degree murder, or you can either find Jeffrey MacDonald guilty of second-degree murder in each case. That's it. Shortly after 4 p.m., August 29, 1979, the jury, having deliberated for 6.5 hours, announce they have reached their verdict. Jeffrey MacDonald was convicted. 1 count of first-degree murder in the death of Kristen. 2 counts of second-degree murder in the deaths of Colette and Kimberly. 4 jurors wept as they announced their verdicts. And MacDonald's mother rushed out of the courtroom. Wow.
So why that doesn't make sense? Why would he be convicted in the first-degree murder in the death of Kristen, who was the one that got hit with the piece of wood in the bedroom while him and his wife were fighting?
Yeah, I don't know.
But then he intentionally went after that and stabbed Kimberly
38
times or whatever the fuck it was.
Right. I'm going to have to go dig into deeper on the murder rates.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
What is the difference between first, second, and third degree? How about that?
With malicious intent but not premeditated.
Okay, so what's first degree? No, down there. Legally, first degree murder.
First degree is premeditated. So they're saying he premeditated killing Kimberly?
Second degree murder is unplanned and intentional. And what's third degree manslaughter?
Right, unintentional.
Wait, so he didn't.
So they're saying Colette and the youngest girl was unplanned, but Kristen, the oldest child, was planned.
Was that the one that was pissing in the bed?
Yeah, right, yeah. But even the Article 32 said he probably accidentally hit her with the board.
All right. Yeah, I don't know about that.
But he intentionally went over.
All right.
But I guess second degree is still intentional, but not premeditated.
Right.
I don't know, dude. That's weird that they would do further first degree for Kristen, though.
They thought they killed her because she pissed the bed.
Maybe. I don't know.
MacDonald himself displayed no emotion. Judge Dupree imposed a life sentence for each of the Moitas to be served consecutively. No, I hate when they do that.
Well, it's a life sentence. What the hell?
What I'm saying, though, not consecutively. Bail was revoked. MacDonald was temporarily transferred to Butner County Jail.
Well, consecutive, it means one after the other, not concurrent.
Right, consecutively, yes. Yeah, that's what I meant. Not concurrent.
Concurrently, you're all serving at the same time, right?
Bail was revoked. MacDonald was temporarily transferred to Butner County Jail. Prior to his permanent transfer to the Federal Correctional Institution in Terminal Island. He shouldn't go to a federal. I guess he has to.
Well, yeah, it was a federal crime. He did it in an army base.
Federal prison is so much better than state.
Well, they don't know that.
Immediately following the verdict, Alfred Kassab telephoned the family lawyer, Richard Kahn. Kassab thanked the lawyer for his exhaustive efforts over the years, stating, says, "Hi, Dick. I just got what I wanted. 3 life sentences. Thanks for everything. We couldn't have done it without your help." The Kassabs also informed the press this was something that had to be done. Now we can rest in peace.
MacDonald appealed Dupree's bail revocation ruling, requesting that bail be granted pending the outcome of his appeal. No, keep your ass in jail. This application was rejected on September 7th, like it should have been. Further appeal to be freed on bail was rejected by the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals on November 20th, which it should have been.
Right. July 29th, 1980, a panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals reversed MacDonald's conviction, ruling via a 2-1.
What is up with the Fourth Circuit Court, dude?
Right.
They suck.
Ruling via a 2-1 margin that the 9-year delay in bringing him to trial violated his Sixth Amendment rights to a speedy trial. He was released.
That makes no sense.
All right.
They dismissed the trial, or the one evidence against him.
Right.
And then it wasn't until the dad tried to do something about it that people repeatedly denied.
Every time it was a speedy trial because they got to it instantly.
Makes no sense, dude. The Fourth Circuit Court of wherever the hell this is stupid.
He was released on the 22nd of August, 1980, having posted $100,000 bail. Subsequently returned to work as a director of emergency medicine at St. Mary's Medical Center in Long Beach.
My
Are you serious?
It doesn't matter if he's guilty or not guilty at this point.
He would later announce his engagement to his fiancée, and this bitch is still there.
Oh, no, this is a different chick.
Randy D. Markwith, I'm saying, though. In March of 1982.
And it's Randy with an I, and that's a trailer park trash stripper name. Oh, my.
6 months later, on December 18th, 1980, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals voted 5-5 to hear the appeal en banc. No.
That's where the case is heard before all judges of a court rather than one judge.
Yeah, this just keeps on going going.
There's like a panel of these guys now. As the majority did not vote to hear this appeal, the application was accordingly denied, upholding the previous ruling.
Wow.
This decision was appealed, of course, and on May 26, 1981, the U.S. Supreme Court accepted the case for consideration, hearing oral arguments on December 7th. March 31st, 1982, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 MacDonald's rights to a speedy trial had not been violated, stating the time interval between the dismissal of the military charges and the indictment on civilian charges should not be considered in determining whether the delay in bringing him to trial violated his right to a speedy trial.
I don't know about that.
Why should it have? What do you mean?
I mean,
I told you everything. How many people denied it when the dudes didn't even want to take the case at first?
That's true.
He was rearrested and returned to federal prison, and his original sentence of 3 consecutive life terms reinstated.
No shit.
And this is Supreme Court. Can't do nothing after that. Following year, MacDonald dismissed Siegel as his legal representative.
Right, what are you going to do?
Yeah, well, obviously, now.
You think if he was guilty, he knew it, and you knew this shit ain't over, you think he would have been long gone.
Nah.
I would have been.
You got to keep up. He's got money, clearly. He's a freaking doctor.
Right. Defense lawyers filed a new motion for MacDonald to be freed on bail pending appeal. But the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals refused.
See, but they refuse this kind of stuff, but then they go on like, oh, we're going to overturn the whole case. It doesn't make sense.
His remaining points of appeal, including his contention the evidence presented at trial did not justify the finding of his guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, were heard on June 9, 1982. Although his conviction was unanimously affirmed on the 16th of August. Shortly thereafter, MacDonald's license to practice medicine in both North Carolina and California were revoked. It took all this time to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Until it finally.
This is
it. This is it. Can we do
all
it?
of his appeal options are gone. Well, I don't know.
No, I guess not.
Because he again appealed this decision, contending his conviction should be overturned due to suppress exculpatory evidence. Favorable to the defendant in a criminal trial. Oh, shut up. Of course it's favorable to the defendant because you did it. Dupree rejected these defense motions on March 1st, 1985. 15 years later, dude. And Dupree's still fucking going strong on the damn bench.
Right.
The Supreme Court upheld the lower court's decision on October 6, 1986 that should put a rest to the damn thing.
Right.
Further defense motion that MacDonald should be granted a new murder trial on the grounds of prosecutorial misconduct was denied on July 8th of 1991. This ruling was appealed on the grounds of judicial bias on October 3rd, but was denied. Give it up, dude.
Jeez, oh, Pete. A further appeal was argued before the Fourth Circuit Court on Appeals in February 1992. This appeal listed newly discovered evidence, which MacDonald contended was suppressed at his trial, in which he claimed corroborated his exculpatory account of the Moitas. This appeal contended that had Judge Dupree permitted this evidence, the jurors would have then learned all of the doctors hired by the defense who had worked for the Army or the government at Walter Reed Hospital, had concluded that MacDonald was psychologically incapable of committing such act of
This is
violence.
stupid. You cannot determine that. How does somebody say, "Oh, this guy could never
They're like,
do
"Hey,
that"?
these doctors said I couldn't do it.
So dumb. The court ruled against awarding a new trial on June 2nd, stating Judge Dupree had acted correctly when he refused to allow the jury to view a transcript of the 1970
Right.
Article 32 hearing, because this was not an insanity trial. He had also acted properly in not allowing the jurors to hear any of the psychiatric testimony, either side.
All right.
This ruling also stated that Helena Stokely's confessions of guilt pertaining to the murders were unreliable and conflicted with the established facts of the case, and accordingly, the judge's ruling against her being allowed to testify at the 79 trial was valid. September 2nd, 1997, the district court, this is still going on 27 years later. The district court granted MacDonald's motion to file a supplemental affidavit with the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. What do you got to appeal now, bud?
Oh, my goodness.
Holy hell.
Well, this affidavit contended that although several sarin fibers found at the crime scene, which did not match any evidentiary item recovered, had most likely sourced from a doll and not a wig. These fibers were also used in the manufacture of human wigs prior to 1970, and thus added to the weight of previously amassed exculpatory evidence. His motion for DNA testing upon these fibers were transferred from the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals to the District Court. MacDonald's lawyers were also given the right to pursue DNA tests on limited hair and blood evidence on October 17, 1997. This testing began in December 2000, with MacDonald's lawyers hoping the results would tie Stokely and her then boyfriend Gregory Mitchell to the crime scene.
March 10th, 2006, the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory announced that the results of this DNA testing revealed that the DNA of neither Stokely nor Mitchell matched that upon any of the exhibits tested. Furthermore, although a single hair found within Colette's left palm was also cited by MacDonald as belonging to one of them, it revealed the hair to come from his own body.
Oh, wow.
This hair was also a precise match with others recovered from the bedspread within the master bedroom and upon the top sheet of Kristen's bed. A hair found in Colette's right palm was also determined to be her own. 3 hairs, one from the bed sheet, one found in Colette's body outline in the area of her legs, and a single hair measuring 1/5 of an inch found beneath Kristen's fingernail did not match the DNA profile of any MacDonald family member or known suspect.
Jeez.
Wait, what? How the hell did Kristen get a hair from somebody that wasn't from the family?
Right. What the hell's going on there?
And 3 hairs, all 3 of those didn't match any. That was up that. Well, I guess you're around people, hair can get on you, right?
Well,
But this hair was beneath Kristen's fingernail.
right. What's going on here?
But it didn't even match the
right.
Stokely or her boyfriend either.
Nobody.
So what the hell? What's going on here?
September 2012, the
They're
district,
like, we'll just gloss over
right.
that.
The district court conducted a formal hearing regarding DNA evidence and statements relating to key witnesses who offered testimony indicating MacDonald's innocence. July 24, 2014, the district court rejected these claims in their entirety and reaffirmed MacDonald's conviction on all accounts. He's like, this is enough, guys.
This is 44 years.
Seriously.
44 years, guys. Can we get it all over with or what?
Reportedly, MacDonald's was disappointed but not surprised
I
with
would
this
assume.
ruling. I mean, it's like he's...
I mean, come on. I mean, it's got to do. You're in prison. What else you got to do?
Right.
Well, we'll appeal one more time.
Can we do it again? Let's do it
All
again. How much money do I got left? Not much.
Yeah, how's he getting this money?
He then appealed the denial of this motion to the Fourth District Court of Appeals. He presented a motion to alter or amend this judgment to the district court, although this was denied in November 2014. He then appealed the denial of this motion to the Fourth Circuit Court. On December 21st, 2018, the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit affirmed the district court's rulings.
And now we're in April 2021, and MacDonald was denied a request for compassionate release upon the grounds of his ailing health, with Judge Terrence Boyle citing the compassionate release laws applies only to individuals whose crimes occurred on or after November 1st, 1987.
Why?
That's probably a law that got passed. A further appeal against this ruling was dismissed by the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit on September 16th, 2021.
Screw that.
You're
If you do
staying in
shit like
jail,
that,
man.
you get no compassionate release. You die in jail, boy.
Well, I don't know. Al Capone got released to go
That's what I'm
die.
saying. Yeah, but he was just a money launderer and tax evasion. Shortly after MacDonald's initial release from prison in August 1980, his supporters hired a retired FBI special agent and private investigator named Ted Gunderson to assist in overturning his conviction. Gunderson contacted Helena Stokely, who on this occasion confessed that she and 5 members of what she describes as a drug cult had developed a deep grudge against MacDonald, as he had refused to treat heroin and opium addicted patients. Accordingly, she and other members of this group had plotted revenge against MacDonald, intending specifically to murder his family, but leave him alive.
Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, to make him suffer.
I guess, but no. According to Stokely, she had telephoned the MacDonald residence late in the evening of February 16th to determine all members of the family were present. Colette had answered and stated a babysitter would be there in the early evening, but why would she admit to some random person on the phone that a babysitter would be there?
Right. Right. Are the parents going to be home? No, they're going to be babysitting here in a little while.
Supposedly, Colette answered, stated a babysitter would be there in the early evening, but after that she had left, the babysitter left, all the family would be present and alone, because Colette would just do that.
Right.
The group had then dropped mescaline before driving to the MacDonald residence. She and 4 others entered the house and confronted MacDonald, intent on him signing a Dextradin prescription. Although the situation quickly deteriorated, with MacDonald attempting to fight his attackers before quickly lapsing into unconsciousness.
Yeah.
Stokely alleged she then ran into the master bedroom to find "Death to all pigs" or something like that scrawled on the headboard, and 2 of her friends bludgeoning Colette on the bed as her child lay asleep next to her. Stokely was adamant she had worn a beige floppy hat on the evening in question.
Stokely had submitted to polygraph tests in April of 1971, with the military examiner stating, "It is concluded that Miss Stokely is convinced in her mind that she knows the identity of those persons who killed Colette, Kimberly, and Christine MacDonald."
Well, spelled it wrong.
It is further concluded that Miss Stokely is convinced in her mind that she was physically present when the 3 members of the MacDonald family were killed. No abnormal psychological responses were noted in the polygraph tracings. However, due to Miss Stokely's admitted confused state of mind and her excessive drug use during and immediately following the homicides in question, a conclusion cannot be reached as to whether she in fact knows who perpetrated the homicides or whether she in fact was present at the scene of the murders. Quote unquote.
April 16, 2007, MacDonald's attorneys filed an affidavit on behalf of Stokely's mother, Helena Teresa Stokely, who stated that her daughter had twice confessed to her that she was present in the MacDonald home on the evening of the murders and that her daughter was afraid of the prosecutors. MacDonald requested to expand his then outstanding appeal to include this affidavit alongside all the evidence amassed at trial, the developments which he had claimed had been subsequently discovered, including the 2006 results of DNA testing, and the statements of individuals to whom Stokely had made these confessions to. So now they're trying to say this Stokely chick actually come on.
Right. This appeal also alleged that the trial statements of prosecutor James Blackburn should be considered unreliable, as he had been convicted of fraud, forgery, and embezzlement, and subsequently disbarred in 1993. MacDonald's motions regarding the DNA results and the affidavit of Stokely's mother were denied. The denial of these 2 motions were based on jurisdictional issues. Specifically, that MacDonald had not obtained the required pre-filing authorization from the circuit court for these motions to the district court. Oh, that's some bullshit. Nonetheless, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals granted MacDonald's motion for a successive habeas petition and remanded the matter back to the District Court Eastern Division. How many times you got to keep on going back and these judges keep on doing shit?
Hey, we'll just bounce it off each other like we're playing frickin' Pong. January 12, 2006, MacDonald was granted leave to file a further appeal based upon a November 2005 affidavit of retired Deputy United States Marshal Jim Britt, who had served in this role during the trial. Britt stated that he had overheard Helena Stokely admit to prosecutor James Blackburn that she had actually been present at the MacDonald house at the time of the murders, and that Blackburn had threatened her with prosecution if she testified as a defense witness admitting this claim. Stokely had earlier met with the defense counsel prior to this alleged meeting with Blackburn and informed him that she had no memory of her whereabouts on the night in question. So which is it?
November 2008. Judge James Carroll Fox denied this appeal.
Yeah, just deny them all to rest this shit, would you?
This denial was based on the merits of the claim, specifically that as Stokely had made many contradictory statements regarding her participation or lack thereof in the moitus, her claims were unreliable.
Right.
In addition, MacDonald's claimed that Stokely had been expected to testify in a manner favorable to him at trial until she had been threatened by Blackburn is contradicted by the official trial records. Obviously, that's not going to be in the trial records that she was blackmailed.
Right. Oh, no, it's right here. Subsequent to this November 2008 decision, a government motion to modify the decision to negate Britt's claims was denied, including Included within the motion was jail documentation establishing that Stokely was originally confined to the jail in Pickens, South Carolina, not Greenville, South Carolina, as Britt had claimed.
Okay.
Also included were custody commitment and release forms indicating that although Britt and fellow Deputy United States Marshal Geraldine Holden had escorted Stokely into the Raleigh courthouse on August 16, 1979, agents other than Britt and Holden had actually transported Stokely to the 79 trial. MacDonald appealed the district court's denial of his claim to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals.
They're like, I don't care what you bring me, man. Unless you have video evidence of anything. Denied. 2011, Court of Appeals reversed this decision, remanding MacDonald's claims back to the district court for further consideration.
Goodness.
They're just doing this shit on purpose, I think.
This is ridiculous.
MacDonald faced several illegal obstacles in his efforts to incorporate a motion relating to the early results of the DNA testing of hair and fiber evidence recovered from 544 Castle Drive. He did this into motion regarding the claims that made in Britt's affidavit, with the court stating he must obtain a pre-authorization for what should be a separate motion filed in relation to the results of the DNA testing. Really? They're so picky.
April 19, 2011, the United States Courts of Appeals granted a pre-filing authorization relating to his DNA claims, reversing the decision of the district court and remanding his appeals for further proceedings. Oh, geez. An evidentiary hearing relating to the claims within the Britt affidavit, the hair and fiber evidence, and further testimony pertaining to Stokely's verbal confessions was held in September 2012. However, July of 2014, Judge Fox ruled against MacDonald's appeal, upholding his conviction.
Oh my! This is like the 5th time this dude's been convicted to life.
Right.
Holy shit! June 1979, MacDonald invited author Joe McGinnis to write a book about his case. Initially unsure of MacDonald's guilt or innocence, McGinnis agreed to his request and was given full access to MacDonald and his defense team during the upcoming trial. That lasted 30 fucking years.
Right.
Jeez.
40, 50.
Right. The book McGinnis authored related to the murders, Fatal Vision, portrays MacDonald as a narcissistic sociopath who was guilty of murdering his family and who believed in his ongoing capabilities to deceive both legal personnel and personal acquaintances. He can deceive his lawyers and his...
Right.
I mean, he had his wife's parents for a little while.
Right. A little bit.
McGinnis quotes a 1979 report compiled by a psychologist named Hirsch Lazar Silverman, who stated MacDonald handled his conflicts by denying that they even existed, adding that MacDonald lacked any sense of guilt, had been capable of committing social acts with impunity, and had been incapable of forming emotionally close relationships with females of any age.
Okay. Silverman further states that MacDonald had avoided and resented his commitments as a husband and father, and that given his ongoing denial of truth, he would continually seek both attention and approval. Fatal Vision also alleges a possible motive for the killings, as MacDonald was regularly taking the amphetamine esketrol in an effort to lose weight via a weight control program for his Green Bay Beret unit. McGinnis suggests MacDonald may have murdered his family in a spur-of-the-moment fit of psychotic rage as a result of his drug use, apparently, huh?
Furthermore, the book emphasizes the fact MacDonald worked extremely long hours in several medical employment roles in 1969 and 1970. His extensive social and family commitments resulted in his suffering from an increasing lack of sleep. Well, I could do it too. Reportedly, MacDonald had expected McGinnis's book to profess his innocence and the ongoing miscarriage of justice to which had been subjected. 1987, he sued McGinnis for fraud, claiming that the author had agreed to hear his innermost thoughts in order to write a positive account of his ongoing fight for justice for himself and his family.
He's going to write what he thought.
Right. But he had actually falsely claimed to believe his claims of innocence after he had already reached the conclusion of his guilt, in order that MacDonald would continue cooperating with him on the project.
Yeah, maybe.
This lawsuit resulted in mistrial on August 21st, 1987. The two later settled out of court for $325,000. He was running out of money to pay his attorney.
Right.
Although the Kassabs subsequently filed their own countersuit against MacDonald, citing an inheritance clause, resulting in MacDonald receiving only $50,000.
Hey, good. Nice. Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen MacDonald were laid to rest side by side in Washington Memorial Park in Suffolk County, Long Island, February 23rd, 1970. Each grave was initially inscribed with the surname of MacDonald, although the gravestones were later changed to Colette's maiden name of Stevenson. You can't do that with the kids.
Right,
though.
come on.
MacDonald is currently serving his life sentence at a federal prison in Cumberland, Maryland, and continues to maintain his innocence.
No shit. Several individuals believe MacDonald, and he remains determined to clear his name still to this day. 2017, MacDonald stated, "I'm not going to get out saying a falsehood to the parole commission in order for them to give me a break. If it takes me saying I killed my family to the parole commission to get out of here and go home, I'm never going home." MacDonald's lawyers have repeatedly used the Freedom of Information Act to locate any evidence not presented by either counsel at his 1979 trial, citing suppression of evidence as justification for a retrial. All efforts have been proved unsuccessful, as successive courts have ruled that these uncovered and stipulated items do not establish any proof of innocence, and thus would not have influenced the verdict of the jury whatsoever. How would you know? What if you
That'd be some damn good evidence.
Right. What if you had a different jury?
I'm assuming he would, since this is 2022.
Right.
MacDonald, they call the other guy back. MacDonald claims that unidentified fingerprint and fiber evidence uncovered inside his home has never been matched to any individual known to have been in the premises prior to or after the murders, and that these prints are evidence of his claim of home intruders.
Yeah, why is there an Well, they did say that they just had police and people just running around rampant.
Further evidence, he contends, has been withheld include two unidentified 22-inch long synthetic hairs found in a hairbrush, but which were not made available to his defense at trial, and a minute spot of blood of either type O or type B, either his blood type or that of his younger daughter Kristen, that was uncovered in the hallway. His supporters also point to unsourced black woolen fibers found upon Colette MacDonald's mouth and shoulder as evidence of intruders, which they contended were also deliberately withheld by the government from the defense.
Really? August 2002, MacDonald married a former children's drama school owner-operator named Catherine... How? He's in prison. People do that. That's so stupid.
Yeah.
Named Catherine Courage. The two had first met in Baltimore decades previously, but became reacquainted in 1997 after Courage wrote MacDonald a letter offering to assist with his legal case.
Oh.
Their friendship gradually became romantic. And their marriage occurred while MacDonald was incarcerated at the federal prison in Cali. MacDonald was later transferred to the Federal Correctional Institution at Cumberland, Maryland, which is closer to his new legal state of residence as well as to his wife. Ain't that
good
nice?
for him. MacDonald became eligible for parole in March of 91, but he did not apply for parole at that time. At the urging of MacDonald's second wife and his attorneys, MacDonald applied for a May 2005 parole hearing. His parole request was immediately denied.
Wow.
His next potential parole hearing was in May 2020, although it is unknown whether he applied for parole on this date. Well, I'm assuming probably if he did, wasn't successful.
Right.
Gregory Mitchell, whom Helena Stokely accused of murdering Colette, died of cirrhosis of the liver on June 2nd, 1982 at the age of 31. Jeez. Like Stokely, Mitchell is known to have been a heavy narcotics user. Prior to his death, Mitchell allegedly confessed to multiple people of his involvement in the murders, although he had previously passed a polygraph in 1971, and the CID had cleared of him any involvement. So, what the hell? They're just throwing shit out there now.
Stokely died at the age of 30. Dang.
What in the hell?
In January 1983, her body was found inside her Seneca, South Carolina apartment, with her death estimated to have occurred 5 days before her body was discovered on the 14th of January. Her autopsy indicates she died of acute pneumonia and cirrhosis. Ooh. In the years prior to her death, Stokely had undergone several years of treatment for drug addiction and psychiatric care. December 17th, 1995, Judge Franklin Dupree died at the age of 82 following a short illness. Bernard Siegel, MacDonald's lead defense attorney, died in California in 2011.
Damn, he's losing everybody. So when that crime occurred in 1970, that Helena chick was only 17 years old.
Wow.
Supposedly.
Wow. And how come you're telling me he only gets a parole hearing every 15 years? That's pretty ridiculous.
Maybe.
Should get a parole hearing every year, isn't it?
Oh.
Or every 6 months? Once you're eligible?
It's like every year, ain't it?
Should be.
Something. James Blackburn, a lead prosecutor in 1979 trial, later admitted that between 1990 and 91, he had forged several court documents unrelated to the MacDonald case and illegally wired money from his law firm's bank account.
Oh, jeez.
In 93, Blackburn pleaded guilty to fraud, embezzlement, forgery, and obstruction of justice. He was disbarred and served 3.5 months in jail.
That's it.
Colette MacDonald's mother and stepfather, Mildred and Alfred, both died in 94.
Oh, wow.
She on January 19th and he on October 24th.
Wow.
Alfred had initially believed, yeah, we know.
Wow.
All right, well, everybody's dead involved in this case besides this guy.
Right. Initially, Mildred had welcomed a 1971 diagnosis of breast cancer. Right in her diary, the cancer would help her and her desire to just die, following the murders of her daughter and grandchildren. However, her husband's steadfast determination to see MacDonald brought to justice compelled her to assist him in his quest for justice. And she consented to submit to radiation therapy. I'm like, why not? I can live.
Well, she's like, yeah.
I'll live for another 20-some years.
Plus, she's like, this wasn't even his kid, and he's fighting harder than I am, so
Right.
I should probably assist him.
1984. Kassab reflected on the impact the events made on his marriage to Colette's mother, stating, most people who go through traumatic things like this, nowhere near as lengthy, almost always end up in a divorce. But with us, it's drawn us closer.
Oh, good.
She was prepared to die.
Right, she was going to, just little do you know. Well, I guess he does know, but.
Right. With his own health in decline in 1989, Kassab recorded a message on tape recorder stating he wished the recording to be played at any future parole hearings. In his recording message, Kassab stated, I want to be sure he serves out a sentence the way it should be served out. I don't want him walking the streets. I mean, that shouldn't.
Right. And if you're interested in any shows about this, the team behind the long-running television documentary series Unsolved Mysteries briefly produced a spin-off show titled Final Appeal from the Files of Unsolved Mysteries. This episode was first broadcast in September of 92. 1984 American television miniseries Fatal Vision is directly based on the book, and Gary Cole is Jeffrey MacDonald in that one, and it was broadcast on NBC November 18th, 1984.
No shit.
Investigation Discovery is also broadcast an 85-minute adaptation of Joe McGinnis' second book about the MacDonald's murder, Final Vision. The last word on Jeffrey MacDonald. Well, they wrote another one. Huh?
Look at that shit.
That was broadcast December 10th, 2017.
Wow.
And a couple books been written by a documentary on the BBC called The Green Beret Killings in 93. False Witness, 90-minute documentary. Interviews with Helena Stokely and Jeffrey MacDonald in that one. And a 2020 documentary, A Wilderness of Error, focuses on the murders. And that's on FX, I guess, right? Cool. Wow.
Huh. So we've got nothing here. Did he do it? I don't know. I mean, did he? Huh. He had the Stokely chick admitting she was in the house. And she's even wearing the clothes that he described. Did he have like some kind of a relationship with his... Was she a whore?
Who said she was wearing those clothes?
Huh?
Who said she was wearing those clothes?
Somebody said that.
It said the cop said he saw somebody standing on the corner. Why would he stop, first of all? That's like what got me, standing on the corner at 4 a.m. and you're some 17-year-old girl.
In a military base.
Right. I mean, come on. Clearly these military guys were sticking up for old Jeffrey.
Yeah, maybe.
And then the one cop or one guy came in and said he's the one that flipped over the table.
Right. No, that was me.
Stupid.
After Jeffrey Dunn said that happened during the fight.
Right. Exactly. Right. He did it. Fuck it.
Yeah. Maybe something there's more involved.
Right in jail.
Was her parents rich?
Doubtful.
Yeah. He probably did do it. But I guess he was found guilty, so there was a conviction.
Sure was. In jail, in prison for the rest of his life, probably. Let us know what you guys think. bangdangpodcast@gmail.com. What the hell's going on with this case? Is he guilty? Is he not guilty?
Holy shit.
What happened? Other than that, yeah, we'll be done with this episode back next week. Make sure
This one has more questions than old Christopher Watts. Christopher Watts.
Oh, well, yeah. There's
We
really,
all know he did that.
really no questions with that one.
Right.
Probably worse than Christopher Watts as well.
Right.
Yeah. Don't forget to go check out manscaped.com/bangdang. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. Manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code True Crime. Jeez, old Peters. 2 hours worth of an episode.
Jeez,
and Battles of the American Civil War and This Week in Sports History. We'll be back next week with Mountain Michigan.
Bang dang.